It is 9:30 a.m. here on Sunday, 15th of May 2022. My name is Arran Hunt. I'm a partner at law firm Stacey Hammond, where I head up the ever-growing immigration team. As always, this is not legal advice. It's just our commentary on immigration here in New Zealand. If you want legal advice, get in contact with us through our website or through other means. Now, let's just jump straight into it. There have been a number of massive changes that came through this week. We had both massive changes to the operational manuals, we had some special directions given, and we had some speeches and interviews from the Minister and the Prime Minister, which gave indications of what's going to happen in the next few months. And we're going to break it all down, give you some details to how it's going to work. We're going to do it in sections. We'll leave links to each section in the description down below so you can jump to one that may interest you. We're not going to cover everything in fine detail, because it'll be hours of videos. We're going to try and just touch on the most, I suppose, the larger factors, things that have changed the greatest, things that may be of interest to you. First, we'll start looking at the new green list, the work visa lengths, pay level exclusions, and what that means for work visa holders or applicants. Then we'll have a look at the changes made to remove, for some of the post-study work visas, what's going on there. We'll then look at the announcement made by the Minister about a new residence visa type based on salary and the green list. Then we'll have a look at the changes for those who are currently in New Zealand on a work visa due to expire later this year. And finally, we'll have a look at some minor tweaks around the RT21, UBB, that sort of thing. At times, we will refer to the operational manual. If you ever refer to us saying a letter and then a number, say E2 or WA3, then we're referring to the operational manual, one of the rules immigration must follow when they're deciding a visa application. We may get more defined, like H5, 25, 15F, sort of going from the H5, the larger section, sort of narrowing it down to a particular line in that page. We will leave a link to the operational manual in the description down below. Now, all the changes that have been made this week have unusually already gone into operational manual. Usually it's a couple of weeks to sort of see the changes go live online. These are already appearing on the website, so you can go and see them now. And as always, if you find this video of use, please like it, please share it. It really does help us out. We haven't had a chance to respond to a lot of the comments on the latest videos. It's been a busy month, but we do have more staff starting actually tomorrow. Hoping with more time to re-engage with you online on a more regular basis. Okay, so let's start with the changes to the upcoming accredited employer work visa, still the worst named visa ever. The new changes can be broken down into pay levels, exceptions of the pay levels, labour market test, and the green list. Now, WA 315B requires the job being put through a job check must have at least $27.76 per hour as the wage. Now, this was, of course, the wage we raised a year ago. It's becoming 8 months ago, it's going to be becoming the next median wage. And now they're sort of bringing it in a little bit later than usual. But from July with this new visa, this will be the median wage rate, $27.76. The exact wording is that for the job to be offered, it must be at that level or higher, unless the job is on the Appendix 14 list. Now, we'll look at that in a moment, but it does seem to indicate that any jobs under median wage which aren't on the list won't be eligible for a work visa, which is a massive change, especially to employers who will hire staff who are paying $21, $22, $23 per hour. But those visas they're currently on will be their last visas unless their pay rate is raised. Now, Appendix 14 is that exclusion list where there is sort of, they're looking at this as being a temporary exclusion. At some point, they want all the workers to be earning that level, but they really realize that is a very sort of a big increase in some markets, and with the markets as they currently are, there's a need to sort of help them to survive and to grow. So Appendix 14 contains those roles where that doesn't need to be met, but it does have a different standard in there. So if you're on that list, in the Appendix 14 list, your job is at $25 per hour rather than $27.76, unless you are in the care workforce sort of sector, which means it's $25.39 per hour is the requirement for your wage, the minimum requirement. Now, beyond care workers, Appendix 14 does cover construction and infrastructure staff, as well as tourism and hospitality staff. But you need to have a look at that list to see whether the ANSCO role, the ANSCO code for your role is in that list. Now, the reduced payment requirements for these groups merely mean that they can have a visa granted. It doesn't mean that they have the same outcome as those earning at or above median. So under WA 415, those at or above median get a 3-year work visa. Those under median, who are on that Appendix 14 list, get a 2-year visa. Now, what's worse is that that 2-year visa is the only 2-year visa you are going to get under the AEWV, after which you have to spend 12 months outside of New Zealand. So if you get that visa, you have to either be trying to angle to get your wage above that median, whatever median is going to be at that point, because if you cannot, then you're going to have to leave the country before you can re-enter a year later and get another AEWV. This is going to seriously impact a number of employers who will have a number of staff in that situation and just can't afford to sort of push all those wages up over that median threshold. But that's sort of, we're going to see where that's going to happen. That's going to happen in a couple of years' time once this, that they hit that 2-year AEWV threshold. Until then, they'll probably survive at least unless they can get the wages up and get them the visas in the first place. Now, labour market tests will continue for most roles. This is where the employer needs to show that they cannot find a citizen or resident to do the job, and was part of the essential skills work visa scheme for a number of years. You're probably familiar with that anyway. There are 2 exceptions here. Now, those who paid $55.52 per hour, which is double the median wage, are not required to have a labour market test. They're going to sort of allow to go without one. Secondly, is that INZ are introducing the green list. Now, this is a list of jobs shown in Appendix 13, the operational manual, where there's a known shortage. So the employer doesn't need to show that a shortage exists. The applicant will need to meet the criteria listed in Appendix 13 for their role, and immigration will be very strict on the meeting of that criteria from our experience with previous visas. This is sort of the approach we saw with the long-term skills worker list. This is pretty much the exact sort of same situation. Now we are going to cover more on the green list later in this video when we get to see how that sort of leads into residence. So that's the major changes to the upcoming work visa. They come into effect from June. If you're currently in a job and you want to look at how long is left on your visa, if it might be worth applying for a new essential skills work visa while you still can, because that is a much easier process under the current essential skills work visa light for those who are currently already working in that job. Also worth mentioning that migrant chefs will now need a qualification under the AEWV. Experience will no longer be enough. So if you are a migrant chef without a qualification, you may want to look at getting a new essential skills work visa while you can get it, just to extend your right to work out as long as you can, and hopefully long enough to get a shot at, say, a skilled migrant work visa whenever they come back. Still migrant residence visa when they come back. Now, for the employers out there, we are preparing a video on the new AEWV, as well as being there to assist you with that process. We should have that available to our clients and everybody else in the next week or so. Is the plan. We'll be able to start doing that for our clients and anybody else who wants assistance. Now, the next section was the big surprise for us, was the attack on the post-study work visa. Now, for years, New Zealand has advertised its tertiary study on the basis that as a bonus, you get the possibility of a work visa at the end of it. But the government is moving away from that approach to some degree. They want to not have that being seen as a factor of why people come study in New Zealand. Now, there are some changes in the operational manual already, but the Minister has said that there will be more coming later in the year. So the changes made so far is that application for post-study work visa must be submitted before 11 May 2025. You need to complete your study, of course, by then. You have to have been a student as at 11 May 2022, or have made an application for a student visa by that date. Now, the one exception to this is those who are coming in that 5,000 new returning students under cohort 4 of the border exceptions, for which there is no expiry, but only a set number of cases. You still have to need to have completed and submitted your application for post-study work visa by 11 May 2025. As I said, they are bringing through more terms later in the year. This is still sort of a little bit out, some away. Now, if you meet either of those criteria, then you can apply and you'll get a post-study work visa as it currently stands. If you don't, then as it stands, there is no post-study work visa for you, but as I said, there is more changes coming, which will actually bring back post-study work visas, but only for defined people. Now, what it's going to work is that, how it's going to work is that those who are on a non-degree level courses, the lower level courses, will not have a right to a post-study work visa, except if that course is in that shortage or skilled occupation list, or perhaps the green list, and where they are going to then be going and working in a green list role. They will get a post-study work visa, allow them to work in a green list role, not in any role. So it won't be an open work visa as we currently see. Degree level and other eligible international students, the higher ones up, will get a post-study work visa that has the same length as their study length, up to a maximum of 3 years. Masters and PhD students will retain the right to work in New Zealand for up to 3 years, as they currently do after their studies. And there will be a no allowance for people to go into their second post-study work visa. So you can't, as you currently you can go and study, get a post-study work visa, do some more study, get another post-study work visa. That's going to be gone. You will get one post-study work visa. We have to look as to how they're going to factor in those who have already had a post-study work visa. Most likely you've had one already, you're not going to get a second one, even though you weren't aware at the time when you started your study. But we have to see as to how they're going to sort of factor in that situation. Now, the funding requirements for showing living costs will increase from 15,000 to 20,000, as we saw during the lockdown. But it is the first increase we've had for a number of years of that living cost you have to show when you get your student visa. Students transitioning to a post-study work visa from 11th of May will also need to show they have 5,000 in funds to support themselves. So support themselves while they're looking for work, which is a new one. Now, there are some new residence visa pathways here. For those who can be in New Zealand, there is finally a new pathway to residence for those who missed out on RB21, or at least there will be at some point in the next few months. As we first mentioned over a year ago, there is a pathway coming for those who earn at least twice the median salary, as well as those who are working on the green jobs in the green list and the green list criteria. There are no official rules yet, but we are we know a few things from the minister's speeches. Those on tier 1 of the green list and appendix 14 will be able to apply for residence as soon as the changes come in, which is expected to be about September. You don't apply for this residence visa. This is a replacement generally for the work to residence long-term skill shortage visa approach we had previously, but without that long wait that you had to do a couple of years working in that role. Now it's basically going to be, if you meet that criteria, you can apply and through you go. For those offshore who meet the requirements, they will be able to apply for this residence, as well as applying for an APWV from offshore at some point in the near future, in the next few months. Now, those on tier 2 of the green list can apply for residence after 2 years. It isn't clear yet what it means by after 2 years, whether it's going to be sort of after 2 years after the visa is announced, or 2 years of working in that under a certain visa. We have to wait and see what the exact definition of that after 2 years is going to be. Surprisingly, nurses are on the tier 2 list, and we agree with the New Zealand Nurses Organisation that that makes no sense. With international demand for nurses, they should really be on the tier 1 list and being granted residence visas as soon as they can. Those who are earning at least twice the median salary, or $115,480 per annum or more, can apply for residence after 2 years. They can be classified as sort of in that tier 2 list, how they're going to handle that. But again, it isn't clear as to what that after 2 years means. Does it mean 2 years already working in that high level job, or 2 years from this point forward? We have to wait and see what it actually says in the actual wording of the operational manual, which we'd expect would get that wording through in perhaps the next month or so. Now, one of the big changes announced by a special direction by the Minister is a further extension for some visa holders. Now, as this special direction, anyone in New Zealand on a post-study work visa or an essential skills work visa, or a work visa as a partner of a New Zealand citizen or resident, where that visa was due to expire between the 9th of May this year and the end of this year, 31st December 2022 inclusive, your visa has been extended by 2 years. Now, your new extended visa will go from 9th of May and run until 2 years after your previous current visa was due to expire. So for example, if your visa was due to expire on 7th of October 2022, your new visa runs until 7th of October 2024. Now, for those of you who were on an essential skills work visa, this new visa you receive will be an open work visa, meaning that you can go and work for any employer in any region, any employment, without needing to apply for a variation. Now, this is a substantial change for many of you who may be sitting on an RB21 awaiting that process. you've now been given this right to sort of move to something else. Now, while your family may won't get that same right, they will be able to go into the interim visa, but your visa just got extended and you're no longer tied to the employer. News isn't so good for people who are on partners or partners to work visa. Now, from December, partners of work visa holders will not be eligible for an open work visa themselves as they currently are, unless their partner is working in a green list role. So if many applicants working in a green list role, then the partner can get an open work visa. If they are not, they'll be granted a visitor visa instead. They can, of course, apply for their own accredited employer work visa if they can meet the criteria for that. But we think this is going to discourage a lot of people from coming to New Zealand or remaining in New Zealand if the employment won't allow their partner to work and they cannot survive as a family off the one income, which nowadays is fairly common. Now, there has been some small minor tweaks with other rules. For RV21, we are sort of seeing phase 2 rolling along slowly, but the applications seem to be fairly clumped together and moving together at the same sort of pace. For those actually who we do have an account on TikTok, we follow that. I will put up some quick little bits of information here and there. And there was some confusion, which I covered in one of these TikTok videos, about when to upload documents. People weren't getting the email, and the system would say them upload the document, but the email wasn't being sent to tell them to go to the system. So check your system. If it says to upload documents, just upload the documents. Don't wait for the email. The emails are getting lost. Some of them are, I think the ones that we get for our clients, emails don't come through. The request was there. We just action the request and upload the documents. We've also seen there's a lot of requests of people for passports for those who are offshore included in an RV21 application. Now that is not unusual. Quite often immigration will always ask for have seen a copy of the passport either themselves at Immigration New Zealand or through the VFS Global, which is the visa application centres around the world. What we have here though is that it seems to be an issue where the system is just being triggered by the fact they are offshore and asking for the passports to be sent in, without checking whether they've done it previously. We've had clients who have provided it a couple of years ago, clients who provided it within the last couple of months, who are all being asked to provide it again. That is a system error that Immigration New Zealand is aware of and they are trying to fix. So if you have provided your passport previously to the VAC and it's the same passport, not a new passport, no, it's the same passport, then you talk to immigration, you may not be required to provide it again. It could just be an error. We also have seen an error where we have a client who has a child who was born in New Zealand, has never left New Zealand, but for some reason immigration are recording that child as being in India and asking for their passport to be provided. So keep an eye for that as well. Just check if the system says to you by a letter, hey, please provide this because you are in this country and you're actually in New Zealand, let immigration know there is an error with that issue as well. That one's less likely to come up though. For those onshore who are applying to bring in partners and children under CPVV, you can now travel offshore once the expression of interest has been submitted. There's no longer a need for you to remain in New Zealand while that is being processed. If you want to go on holiday and visit them, you can do so. Just make sure you have a right to re-enter the country, of course, yourself. But you have to be onshore definitely when the expression of interest is submitted. And that CPVV that your partners and your children will receive now will be a multiple entry CPV, not a single entry. So they can come and go from the country now that the borders are opening up. And finally, small quick changes to applications for visitor visas from Pacific Island Forum nations, excluding Australia, must now be made online only. There is no paper-based applications now for those from the Pacific. And that is it for today. Now we are working on a number of detailed videos around the Accredited Employer Work Visa Scheme, which we'll put up in the next few days and we'll get out to our clients and we're there to assist any of you with both registration for the employer and when, of course, when the scheme comes into place, the applications for the jobs themselves. Anything else we can help with, please let us know. And otherwise, please have a fantastic weekend. To our clients out there, our many clients and their families in Sri Lanka, and to anyone else in that beautiful country, kia kaha, and please stay safe.